Are you ready to see another tool or technique that we can use to clean up our photographs? Well, here goes. In this one, we'll look at how we can use what's called content-aware fill. Now, the first step of using this technique is to duplicate your background layer. So we'll click on the background layer and drag this down to the new layer icon. Then double-click the layer name and rename it. Call it Cleanup. Next step is to choose one of our selection tools. The one which I'll use is the lasso tool. And we want to zoom in a little bit, so press Command plus on a Mac or Control plus on Windows. And when we zoom in, we want to start to analyze the area that we want to work on and make a selection around an object or something that we want to minimize or get rid of. So here I've made a selection of this part of the branch. So that's step number 1. Step 2 is to go to the Edit pull-down menu, and here we're going to click on the menu item Fill. Notice it says Fill ... Whenever you see dots, that means you're going to see a menu. So click there, and we see a menu. This is the Fill menu, and we'll click on the pull-down menu, and we want to choose Content Aware, and then click OK. What this will do is it will do its best at trying to remove that object and cover it up with something else, a new pattern. If it doesn't quite get it, like it wasn't great there for me, just make another selection and then go and choose this again and click OK. And often what you'll do is you'll be making multiple small selections like I'm doing here in order to retouch away any of these little problem areas. If you have a little bit of a bigger area, you can make a bigger selection, but you want to be a little bit cautious about going too big because sometimes that can lead to other problems. So here, I'm just going to work on this little area right here, and then go to Edit, Fill, and click OK. Now, the other tip that I want to throw in here is if you have multiple areas you want to work on, like let's say we want to work on this branch right here, and also this one, and this one, and that, and that. Well, you can make one selection, hold down the Shift key, and then make another selection, hold down the Shift key, or keep holding the Shift key, and go over these different areas like I'm doing here. And in this way, we can work on multiple areas. I'm just going to go ahead over this like that there, maybe up in here, and then go to the command Edit and Fill. What this will do is it will work on all of those areas at once. So that's a little tip which sometimes is helpful if you need to speed things up. Well, in our case, I think we've done a pretty good job. Let's take a look at this. I'll zoom out a little bit. And when we zoom out, we can see how we've now created a new pattern there in the background. We've covered up a lot of the problems. There are a couple other areas I just want to work on here, so I'll do this a few more times in order to do that. Now, at the end of this, if you have an active selection, for example, if you apply this and then you still have the selected area to deselect, just go to the Select pull-down menu and then choose Deselect, and that will then deselect the active selection so that you can move ahead. Now, a quick word of caution about this technique. It works incredibly well when we have backgrounds or patterns, yet it doesn't work very well when we make a really large selection. Let me show you that just so that if you ever run into this, you know what happened. If I have an area like this that I want to clean up and I make a huge selection around this area like this and go to Edit and choose Fill and then click OK, sometimes you may get lucky, but most of the time what's going to happen is it's going to pull in other content and just get kind of weird. You can see it brought in her face and that just didn't really work. So I'll undo that and deselect, and then maybe I'll say, well, what if I go with even just a touch smaller of a selection? Go to Edit and Fill and try this out. What we'll see is sometimes it's a little bit better, but we still have some of the hair in the forehead. So with this particular technique, if you notice that it's pulling in content which you really wish it hadn't, what that tends to mean is that your selection is too big. And we saw that here when we used those small selections and we were able to clean that part of the image